There's a good chance that if you've ridden a mountain bike, you've fallen off a mountain bike. Don't ask me how I know, but even if you don't crash, it's still possible to get a concussion during a rough ride. And unlike other parts of the body, brain tissue doesn't have pain receptors to tell you if there's been damage to the organ. This is why people can sometimes be awake during brain surgery. It's also why a company in Scotland has developed a device that can be fitted to a helmet, connected to an app, and used to help people know if they might have had a concussion. The brain injuries can make it hard to decide whether you should stay on the trail or in the game. So if the device gives users a red light, it could encourage them to stop what they're doing and potentially avoid a more serious injury. It's being tested on professional mountain bikers, but the company that made it says it could be used in a variety of activities by a variety of age groups, and it could become another useful tool in helping people avoid brain injuries. I'm Carl Azuz, and Fridays are awesome! How do I know? Because this is the Friday when you learn why we drive on parkways and park on driveways. Plus, even more important stuff, this is the world from A to Z. There's a virus, not named COVID-19, that's been circulating on and off in wildlife since 1996. It's called H5N1, avian flu or bird flu. It can be carried by wild birds as they migrate. It's highly contagious and deadly to birds, and it has been contracted in other animals like cows on American farms. So does this mean there's a threat to the U.S. food supply? Government officials say no. One reason is that farmers take extensive measures to keep the virus from spreading, sometimes slaughtering entire flocks of chickens if a single case of bird flu is found. Another is that even though the virus has shown up in cows, it's not typically deadly for them. Most recover within a week and a half. Recent tests have detected bird flu in the U.S. milk supply, but not the live virus. Officials say they've identified dead genetic material from H5N1 that is not a threat to humans. Can humans catch it at all? In rare cases, yes. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control says 2 Americans have gotten bird flu since 2022. One worked directly with cattle and had eye redness as the only symptom of the virus. Another worked directly with poultry and had fatigue as the only symptom. They both caught it this year and they've both recovered.
A large outbreak of bird flu in dairy cattle has some consumers worried about the safety of the milk they drink. But the Food and Drug Administration says early tests of pasteurized milk in areas where cows have tested positive for H5N1 suggest it is not infectious. Alan Birga with the National Milk Producers Federation, which represents dairy farmers, says heating or pasteurizing milk briefly kills harmful bacteria and viruses.
We have 100 years of scientific background that shows that pasteurization is effective at making viruses like this inactive and not a threat to human health.
The USDA has reported more than 30 herds of dairy cows infected with bird flu across 9 states. But the FDA says their testing shows the commercial milk supply is safe. But H5N1 can be dangerous to animals.
In other mammals, there has been a lot of destruction as a result of this virus.
Meanwhile, the USDA says food safety officials are testing samples of ground beef from grocery stores for traces of H5N1. But could the bird flu outbreak impact prices?
We're not seeing any concerns about shortages. We're not seeing any concerns about problems on prices in terms of supply demand.
To help contain the spread and identify further cases, the USDA says it will require a negative test for influenza A for any cows traveling over state lines.
On this date in world history. 25 years ago today, dozens of tornadoes barreled through Oklahoma, the strongest of which was an F5 twister, the maximum rating. It hit part of the capital, Oklahoma City, with the fastest winds ever recorded, over 300 miles per hour. More than 40 lives were lost in the outbreak, which also caused more than $1 billion worth of damage. Washington, D.C. was officially incorporated as a city on this date in 1802. Eligible voters there elected the city council. President Thomas Jefferson appointed his friend Robert Brent as D.C.'s first mayor. And y'all remember that eclipse story the media might have mentioned about a month ago? Well, check it. Another total solar eclipse appeared over part of England back in 1715, and it was predicted, reportedly within 4 minutes of its occurrence, by English astronomer Edmund Halley, also the namesake of Halley's Comet.
Word of knowledge. Calvert Vaux and Frederick Olmsted were the designers of what famous landmark? Central Park, Gateway Arch, Rock City, Pacific Coast Highway. In the 1850s, these two landscape architects teamed up to work on something called the Greensward Plan, which would eventually become New York City's Central Park.
Vaux and Olmsted sound kind of like a 1980s pop duo, but not only did they design the New York landmark, they're a big part of the reason why two terms, driveway and parkway, originally meant what they did, though based on how they're used today, many people think the words should be flipped.
The word parkway refers to a scenic road that winds through trees and greenery, but the term first referred to a path through a park, where trees and flowers lined the way. The first ones in the United States were developed in the 19th century, dubbed parkways by landscape designer Calvert Vaux and his junior partner Frederick Law Olmsted. Those two are known for designing Central Park in New York City. They pushed for a public park that was accessible to everyone, which wasn't very common back then. But urbanization was sweeping the country, and landscape architects played an important role in establishing green spaces in cities. Parkways were originally designed for nice walks in the park, or perhaps a carriage ride. But when automobiles came along, parkways became the perfect route for a scenic afternoon drive. And so, parkways turned into roads for driving, and no one bothered to change the name because driveways already referred to something else. Today, driveways are used for parking, ironically, but early driveways connected private properties to public roads. They were often long roads leading up to the house, or connecting to the barn where wagons could load up hay and livestock. But again, when cars came along, driveways became a convenient place to park away from main roads. The terms parkway and driveway are flip-flopped, and it would get awfully confusing to try to switch them. So here we are more than 100 years later, still driving on parkways and parking on driveways.
We're driving over to the Baked Bean State today and parking in the village of Turner's Falls. That's where Mr. Stewart's class is watching from Franklin County Technical School in Massachusetts. From the southeastern city of Chatsworth, the Blazers are lighting up Bagley Middle School. Mrs. Baggett's class is there in the Peach State of Georgia. And in the Rough Rider State of North Dakota, it's Mr. Burge's class in the city of Buxton that's with us today. Big hello to everyone at Central Valley Public School.
After a pair of Ohio cops spotted a duck oddly standing on a storm grate, they quickly figured out why. 11 ducklings were trapped in the drain below. This unlucky duck had to get down in the muck, handing the trapped babies up to his partner one by one. But in the end, the feathered family was fine thanks to some caring cops who quacked the case. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
Quacked the case. Well, what else is there to say? That the rescue was truly great if still draining, that it fit the bill, that the cops didn't duck out on their responsibility or let it be a web footnote on an otherwise ducky day. We're glad they worked quickly upon seeing the problem to unburden the distressed mother duckling who'd already stuck her neck out and had nothing more than a wing and a prayer to get her ducks unstuck from a mallardy. I'm Carl Azuz. The world from A to Z is taking flight for the weekend, but we hope to see you next Monday. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. You mean the world to me.